cheap shot that was.
No time like the present, they say. So I'm ready for anything, as it were. Well, I say that. I've not done any research or anything, so I'm just going to do whatever it is that comes in my head.
I thought this would be a little tester.
Oh, right, okay.
An unpublished test.
An unpublished test, okay.
So
excellent.
See if it works. So it obviously works a little bit like a phone call.
Yeah, I'm beginning, because initially when you said I didn't get it, and then this app is very weird.
Yeah.
So it took me a little while to get used to it, but I kind of see what you do now.
Yeah,
as it were.
Yeah, I mean all the buttons are down at the bottom, which makes it quite awkward. But basically, you just press the plus, and then record.
I think essentially, like my first real complaint with things like this, especially, is that it's what I call sexy but not practical. like every, you know what I mean? Like every building now has got to be like really slick and like smooth, and it's got to have like silver everywhere, and there's windows and stuff. You know, we used to have doors. Do you remember when we used to have doors? That's how old I am. I remember doors. Now we have swinging windows. Now we have automatic windows. Like we don't have buildings that look like buildings anymore. They look like greenhouses. And as a man of the visually impaired variety,
oh, dude.
Yes, the residential blind man talking. I find it very frustrating to walk through town as I go, right, I'm sure that I will figure out which building this is.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to have to ask somebody because I can't tell just by looking at it. Yeah. Eventually, churches will go the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. And quite a few churches already have. In some places, everything's automatic. All the doors look exactly the same.
I wouldn't mind it so much if there was a bit of variety, but they're just kind of swinging windows now. So
yeah. And as the photographer of the conversation, I used to have a fascination with doors. Simply because of the stories that they could tell, the people that have walked through these doors, especially the old type doors.
Well, it makes me think, that scene in Nightmare Before Christmas, where he's walking around all those trees. Can you imagine how boring that would be if that was done by modern architecture? Just a bunch of trees with, like, a vaguely shaped out bit of glass sort of stuck on it.
Yeah.
Quite sort of, wow, I wonder why Jack wants to go in there. Probably mistook it for the dentist's office. I don't know, but what were we going to talk about in this episode then, Luke? What's the thing that was on your
I just thought I'd see how it worked, really. How the whole anchor thing worked, and I was going to sort of get together some ideas. But this is a good start, to be fair.
So far it's been me complaining about stuff. So we're off to a good start.
It's a good start, though. I mean, basically, we were going to talk about what was I going to call it? Wrestling with disability, wasn't it?
Wrestling with disabilities. That could be yes.
Yeah.
In fact, anybody who wrestles me wrestles with disabilities. So, yes. You will believe a blind man can clothesline. Yes, you will, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, very, very hard.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've come across a lot of things in your time, a lot of obstacles. Which
I've been around for 1,000 years, so yes, yeah.
Obviously, as Odin,
you every time I make that joke, for those of you out there in the ether, there's a young lad who I jokingly call Thor, and in turn he jokingly calls me Odin, and he kind of does look like a younger version of me if I was ever that skinny, and so we've come to this sort of joke that like, well, this is my son Thor. Hello there, how are you? But yeah, you should have him on the podcast. Actually, that would be a good episode. That would be
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Shout out to our friend Pete there, who is secretly the Thunder God and my celestial son somewhere. No, so if you wanted to discuss that, then is there anything you wanted to start with, so to speak? Like, should
I
we
mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you'd go from the beginning, wouldn't you? Like we
okay,
talk about wrestling, how you got into it,
okay, Mr.
um,
Interviewing Man, off you go.
and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, I just find it really interesting that most of the people that we see at Aspire Wrestling Alliance, big shout out there,
Yep.
have gone through something or are still going through something with a disability or something like that sort of stopped them doing other things, but wrestling has brought them all together.
Yeah, I mean, Aspire in the
Love of wrestling.
beginning, yeah, and Aspire in the beginning really was meant as an outlet for initially mental health. And I think that it goes actually further beyond that because we have had so many different people from so many walks of life that we've ended up kind of accumulating a myriad of different disabilities and different abilities as well. So it's quite a little band of crazies that we've got.
Yeah, and that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it good. That's why with this whole coronavirus thing,
Yeah,
I'm really going to miss going to the training facility on a Tuesday night. I
yeah.
really am. But
No,
this may be the way to connect us all. Do the podcasts, get people,
yeah,
different people involved.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, for me, just to start from the beginning, really. Wrestling essentially did for me as a kid what I think it does for a lot of people is that if I was to tell you that here's this small lad originally from South Wales, is visually impaired, kind of I would say quite nerdy, you wouldn't put me at the top of the social ladder necessarily because I wasn't. But wrestling weirdly was a way for me to go out of that world of uncertainty, and it got me away from bullies at school and things. It made me happy in a way that other art forms kind of do, but somehow it's different. It's not quite the same. Wrestling is quite unique in that way. I think maybe it's a lot to do with the fact that what we do is physically demanding, and
mhm.
there's a certain kind of athleticism and toughness that you have to do it, and not just the creative aspect. Um, I'm far more aware as I've gone into training and things just how much of a toll it can take on you. And as we know, I've been out injured for a month or two, so
Yeah,
I'm definitely learning that and being humbled by it and coming back slowly. So wrestling, I think, has really been a huge change in my life. It always has been really.
yeah. I mean, it's been exactly the same for me, and I can see where you're coming from there. I mean, when I was at school, there was no such thing as dyslexia, and I always found it difficult at school. But like yourself, wrestling to me was an outlet.
Hmm.
It was seeing real life superheroes, you know, and they'd come to places like Hina Leisure Centre, and I got to see like Big Daddy and giant haystacks and these
Hmm.
huge mountains
I'm
of
very
human
envious
beings.
of that. So, but for you,
And
Luke, did you ever want to be in the ring? Or was it, did you always want to manage, or where was
It,
your, you know?
I I honestly, mate, I never ever thought that there would be anything like the kind of provision that there is now.
Hmm.
I didn't know about it. I thought it was just on the telly.
Hmm.
It was a TV program. I knew these things happened. Obviously, there were events, but they were all in America,
Yeah.
or so far out of reach that you'd never think that you'd get near any of them. And then in the last 4 or 5 years, I've slowly found out that wrestling is very much alive in Britain, in the
Hmm.
UK,
Hmm.
and there's so many places to go. And that sort of led me to Hope Wrestling, to House of Pain Wrestling, and to Future, and obviously Aspire.
Hmm.
And then, it's the training side of it. If we were having this discussion 10 years ago, I would have said absolutely yes, get me in the ring.
Hmm.
I would have done that. But I've had tremendous amounts of back problems
Hmm.
that, to me, at the age that I am,
Hmm.
I need to sort of stay away from the in-ring competition,
Hmm.
but use my love of wrestling to inspire others,
Hmm. Hmm.
But I mean, thinking back about it, I always loved the managers. Like Bobby the Brain Heenans, Math the South, Jimmy Hart's,
Yeah.
and more so now. I can appreciate those characters more than I ever did.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And do you
And
find that you change your perspective every time you look at them now? Because I never
yeah,
see the same promo twice and think the same thing. I always get something different from it, I find.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've only been going to promo class for 2 months, and it's been cut short, unfortunately, and I'm absolutely gutted because I was really getting to grips with
Mm.
my character,
Mm.
and it
That's,
was
that's a discussion we can have actually at some
yeah,
point, because that would be
yeah,
quite interesting, is sort of looking at that. Because essentially, I think too often people on the outside look at what we do as being a little bit too theatrical, um,
yes,
which I think is
yeah,
unfair because it does take away from, it's multi-layered, and certainly that's a part of it.
yeah, it is,
But managers essentially added that pizzazz, but it doesn't take away
yes,
from the fact that at the end of the day you're going to be watching a match, and that's ultimately the focus that you're there for.
absolutely,
You're speaking on behalf of talent rather than saying, "Hey, how look at me over
yeah,
here. Don't look at the match. Look at me."
yeah, yeah. There was a few managers that did that. I mean, the one-off manager.
drove me
And I
mad.
remember the camera cuts, so that you always used to be on the managers. I was like, get back in the ring. I want to watch the match. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I hated when I'd see people do it, and I go, "Oh no, why?" But I don't know. Thankfully, though, the couple that you've just named there were supremely talented.
Yes, they were.
So why do you think? Because you grew up and you're watching Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks in Hina.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when does the WWF come into play for you as an influence?
When Sky Sports appeared in the UK,
Hmm.
early 1990s,
Hmm.
I remember, this is a good one. My first WrestleMania that I can remember was WrestleMania 8.
Ah.
And I still adore that pay-per-view. For many, many reasons.
Hmm.
Bret Hart, Roddy Piper was a fantastic match.
Love that match.
Yeah, brilliant. Ric Flair, Randy Savage, also a very good match. Sadly, it was waylaid by this double main event thing with Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice, or whatever his name was at that point,
Mm.
and that storyline. And I remember that pay-per-view vividly. It was the first time I saw HBK, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, in a match with another manager, Sensational Sherry.
Oh, I would love. You'd love somebody like a Sensational Sherry.
Yeah.
She was just amazing. I love watching this stuff. Yeah.
And I didn't know until I watched the program on the network that she actually played. Was it in WrestleMania 4? She was the dancing girl for Honky Tonk Man.
Really?
I can't remember.
I don't know.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, she was, and you wouldn't know unless you were told. She was wearing a blonde wig and things. Well, that was my first memory of WrestleMania. What was your first WrestleMania memory?
Weirdly, my first, it wasn't actually a contemporary one. The first WrestleMania that I really remember that really stuck with me, and it really did influence the kind of wrestling that I grew up loving, was very much WrestleMania 10, which my dad had on tape. And the thing I remember being so distinctive about it was the first match was just a roller coaster ride. It was just, gosh, it was amazing. Owen Hart.
Give me goosebumps talking about it, dude.
And I think that match for me was like, wow, this is what wrestling can be. You know, it's kind of like, I've never seen this before. It felt like it was like a big fight atmosphere, you know, and I loved the black and yellow ropes, and I loved just the whole thing around it. If I'm remembering it correctly now, I've said that. Oh, I think it might have actually been the color scheme around the venue and stuff, but it all was an all-encompassing thing. But then 2 matches later, you've got like Bam Bam and Doink and Dink, and you know, and it was a good match. It was also a little bit goofy, not too goofy, just enough. You know, it was just the right amount of goof. That was
it was transitional time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. It gave me a few laughs, and then you went on from there. And of course, I think one of my favorite things now, when I look back on it, I didn't appreciate it at the time, was when Brett goes up against Yokozuna. I didn't realize just how great Yokozuna was.
Yeah.
And, you grow in appreciation of these things when you watch them back as you're older. And as a fan, you notice things and go, right, that's what I need to learn from somehow. Just the way he did things. Mr. Fuji at ringside and little things like that. That now, whenever I go into training, I really do study things very hard and try and say, right, how do I go in and how do I put this little thing I've found out, and how do I apply it and see how it works for me, kind of thing. So I think that's one of those pay-per-views I'm always going to go back and look at again and again and again, just to get a feel for it and to say, what was it about this that I enjoyed, and how do I possibly transition that over? But I think maybe not too many people would have analyzed it to death. But that's just me, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you do start appreciating people like this. I think I've had this discussion with you before, but I never appreciated the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, until I got a lot older. And it was the little things, right from, he was like the mega heel, the little things they said. He even made IRS relevant. And what was his catchphrase? I'm going to get you dirty tax cheats to pay your taxes. That kind of thing. And it's like, boo. It's like the dead simple things. Like, you got to pay your taxes. No, we won't do it.
Yeah.
And then you've got the $1 Million Man just chucking out money everywhere. And it's like, and that laugh and everything, and it's like he raps his own theme tune.
See, for me, again, it's the right kind of.
It's brilliant.
It's not. It's kind of over the top, but it's not too much. I like that.
No, but it was set in the 80s, so it was very relevant to the time as well.
Yeah, because you'd had, wasn't it, prior to that, Wall Street had come out.
Yeah.
I think American Psycho obviously was 2000, but you can actually look back and go, wow, that was, written, the novel, I should say, was written in that sort of era, and I can see where an Irwin R. Shyster would have been very relevant, actually, to kind of
and again, $1 Million Man's like putting money on stocks, riding around in a chauffeur-driven limo, having the $1 million title commissioned because he couldn't win the big one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I still think that's a damn shame that he never got that Winged Eagle belt.
But
title, championship.
The funny thing with these, your first memories of wrestling, really my first prevalent one, the one that really inspired me and said, like, I want to be in a ring someday, was The Undertaker coming out and beating up 20 people and then jumping on his motorcycle and riding off. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I want to be that dude.
That's a big jump, dude. That is from 1989.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, I as a kid, the first real WrestleMania I watched was WrestleMania 10, and that was on tape. The first WrestleMania I watched that was contemporary, I don't think I watched until I was maybe 19, because we couldn't really afford to buy the pay-per-view and stuff. So, so it was I had to live vicariously through a lot of these old tapes and stuff. And I'm sure, like you, I watched the wrestling channel as a kid.
Yeah.
And saw a lot of World of Sport and a lot of Japanese stuff, which I really enjoyed. But I didn't really get much of a chance to watch a lot of the bigger pay-per-views that were happening as I was growing up. I had to rely on. Do you remember the recap shows that they used to have on the weekend that they do now?
Yes.
That's what we used to watch, and I would watch Sunday Heat, which I enjoy. That was always fun. You could watch SmackDown. Some of my favorites, though, from that era, because we should probably talk about that. Do you remember Road Dogg? Back in the day, Road Dogg I was a big fan of, and a lot of the DX guys actually I was a big fan of, but they were starting to transition out of that a little bit.
Yeah, because it was sort of started 97.
Yeah.
They started transitioning out of it because they obviously had the McMahon-Helmsley era come 2000. And I've actually been watching the 2000s pay-per-views and posting them on my channel, on my YouTube channel. Shout out to Cheap Shot Entertainment on YouTube.
I remember distinctly it was it the 2001 Judgment Day where Undertaker arrived on his motorcycle, because that was the thing that really stuck.
I think it might have been 2000 because he was in the Hell in a Cell match in 2000, wasn't he? So it might have been Judgment Day 2000.
Yeah.
That might have been.
I'll have to go back and double check it, but that was sort of burnt on my mind. And if it was 2000, I would have been about 8 years old. So yeah, I mean, it was quite a while ago now. I'm old as hell now. So, but but yeah. Anyway, so I'll tell you what, right? I can remember the first contemporary one I watched. What year? Because I'm terrible with dates and stuff. What year was it where it was WrestleMania 20?
That would have been 2000.
I remember being in my cousin's house back home in Wales, and I seem to remember we'd stayed up late, and I remember distinctly hearing Paul Bearer for the first time.
Oh,
I remember it sent
Oh,
chills down my spine. Kane and Undertaker were like two of my favorites. Um, particularly like Kane when he had the original costume and stuff was terrifying.
yeah.
You know, like,
Silent Monster.
he was the scariest thing on TV by far.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
But that was the first one I remember, and I don't have a lasting memory of most of that night really, but I do remember distinctly that Undertaker entrance because it's gone down in history as being one of the greatest ever.
Yeah,
and continues
and
to be the
that
greatest.
was
I would say probably. I don't think anybody will ever take Taker's place as my favorite. Yeah, no, never will.
now
No.
Undertaker. He just transcends everything, doesn't he? And we've seen him come, we've seen him go, and I think how many times has he put his hat in the middle of the ring now? I think he needs to probably leave it there for the last time. I'd be sad, but if he can still go and he's looking decent these days,
You know,
if he can still go.
I saw an interview with Paul Bearer where he said, "I would love to." I'm not going to do the voice. I would I would love to. He said, "I would love to see Taker come back as he was in the beginning, with the boot covers and the gloves and all that stuff, and." But
Yeah,
like the last thing that you see is the first thing that you saw. And I always thought, yes, that would be great. I don't think they
no,
will ever do that, but I would love it if they did.
no,
Um,
no. I think that's way too early 90s, isn't it?
but I would love to see it. Just one match.
I think they could. I think they could modernise it, but I think he's got a good look at the moment in terms of the like modern day Undertaker with the long coat and the big hat and stuff like that. It's still very Texas,
You know,
still very
well, that
cowboy-ish.
was another appeal for me, actually. I'm just going to ask you about this: is how much of wrestling do you think has influenced a lot of other things that you're interested in? Because for me, the image of the cowboy and bikers I had
Yeah,
really grown up with and really admired
yeah,
that look and always liked hats and always liked leather jackets and, you know,
yeah,
uh, denim and things. And I've always very much gravitated towards that look.
yeah,
Partly, I think, because of Taker, but also the whole cowboy thing. I'm a big fan of westerns and,
Oh, can't
and
please.
country
Yeah.
music and stuff. And there was a lot of not a lot of contemporary music in my house, to be quite honest with you. we
No.
had a lot of Roy Orbison and a lot of Kenny Rogers and stuff like that. So it was quite old fashioned in some ways. Um, but yeah, so I mean, those images kind of burnt in me, I guess. But did you ever have things like that where a wrestler just made you go, you know what, that would be interesting. I need to learn more about that somehow.
I don't know if I did, mate. To be honest, because I was always like Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. I was always a follower of the face guys.
Hmm.
Even right down to sort of Tatanka and stuff. But like to like when Tatanka first came in, I wanted to find out more about the sort of Native Americans and things. But obviously Hulk Hogan was just Hulk Hogan, wasn't it? What more do you need to find out about that? And
He kind of
yeah, I mean, as I got along, I sort of found out things about wrestlers. Macho Man Randy Savage
well, see, I loved
used to
Macho
play
Man, the cowboy
baseball and
hat and
things.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever been influenced in terms of what I wear, although at this point I am wearing jorts and a t-shirt. So take that how you will.
Oh,
um,
hmm.
word life and all that. But
See,
um,
I didn't get into hip hop until I was quite older. So yeah, but I think
yeah, I
I was
mean,
probably 20 when I discovered Big Daddy Kane and stuff like that. So I was quite old by that
yeah,
point. But yeah, um, No, I was gonna. What was I? What was the point I was gonna make? Oh, I've started interviewing you now. This is just,
No, this I like this. This is sort of like an interesting
so,
thing because we could definitely share this. Like I could do it on my thing and you could do it on yours because this is a good conversation.
yes, it's.
I like it. We could cross collaborate.
I think it's quite funny that I am essentially just. I'm still in quarantine, but thankfully I never stop talking, and because being Welsh, you never do stop talking. It's kind of a thing, but. Maybe I should leave you to steer. Yeah, that's right. You don't say anything, English boy. Anyway,
I'm lucky I'm far enough away that you can't throw me over your shoulder. Hit me with some judo.
Well, actually, do you know who was a big? I had influences in my family. My auntie was world judo champion, etc., and I got into it partly because of her. But another influence, believe it or not, was the human suplex machine. Because I remember hearing as a kid JR on commentary saying something about Taz being from a judo background. And it was, wow,
yeah,
he does that. Wow. And I always loved the way he did suplexes. Like he could take guys twice his size near enough and he could just throw them around. I thought, yeah, I need to learn to do that.
Yeah, hip pops and all that kind of stuff. It's the sucker for technique, wasn't he? I mean, he was really good. I remember when he first came into WWE. That was 2000 as well. A lot of stuff happened in 2000.
Yeah, because the
Royal Rumble, wasn't it?
I remember growing up with the whole hardcore title thing.
Yes.
They were always enjoyable. I was a big fan of Big Boss Man, and he was usually involved in those matches somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
Funny stuff.
Like the new Big Boss Man. See, like I was from the era where everyone was a character, and they were characters based on jobs. And obviously, when I was younger, the Big Boss Man was a cop. And he wore the blue t-shirt and blue shirt.
More wrestling, better wrestling. So
yeah, and it was like in the 2000s. He was a badass, man.
Oh God,
he was absolutely badass. Except for his what was it? Kennel? No, was that a Kennel from Hell? Yeah, it was a Kennel from Hell match. Oh God,
there's a weird.
Yeah, he's had some interesting matches, hasn't he? from the Hell in the Cell.
Well, the weirdest one I think was they're in a hotel room, him and Al Snow, and Al keeps calling him Ray, and it's the weirdest thing because he's like, is he the Big Boss Man or is he Ray? What's his name? God forbid we have consistency on this program, but I guess just being told to say what he wants to say, I guess. But it always confused me when people would do that, and then so it's like Ray goes over, he informs him that he's eaten his dog, and I thought, I don't get it. What's going on? Because you get older and you go, oh no, that's awful.
Yeah.
But as a kid, I was like, I don't get it. What's happened? Not quite sure I've got this, but to be young in the Attitude Era, I'm sure. Well, it wasn't. Yeah. Was it Attitude at this point? I don't know. I can never keep up with these things.
Yeah, because we're transitioning at that point, aren't we? Really, we come out like we've got the Attitude Era, still the Attitude Era, but it's transitioning out into the McMahon Helmsley era, going towards the ruthless aggression era, which came a bit later on. Obviously, this is the point where WCW started going downhill, and WWE was basically doing whatever the chuff they wanted, and incidentally, actually, another one from the 2000s. It's WCW, but I did watch the film Ready to Rumble the other day.
No, I've never watched it.
With David Arquette.
You know what? I'm going to be Kyle Cornett for a minute and just let's not go there. I know he's great now, but yeah. Actors winning world titles, I'm not a big fan of that. That's
no, but I don't know how I feel about it, but it was a desperate measure for desperate times, wasn't it?
I can tell you exactly
you bring in
about it.
You bring in a celebrity, you're gonna get news, aren't you? You're gonna be in the news, and it was a time where they were desperate to do things.
I think,
and to be fair to him, Arquette did his job in that triple cage match. It was a rate cluster, but it was quite fun.
Yeah,
because I watched the pay-per-view as well. I watched Slamboree 2000.
I respect that he didn't want to do it and that he was hesitant because, but then he should have flat out said no. So, that's just my opinion on it. But, yeah.
But once they'd made the film with the triple cage match and all that kind of stuff, you just think, well, at this point, they're probably going to go out of business. They might as well do it anyway, aren't they? Well, he didn't actually get involved with the match completely at all. He wasn't involved with the match at all. It was just DDP and Jeff Jarrett beating each other up. But the concept of it was it was insane. Like, you had to climb up from the first cage using a ladder into the second cage. And the second cage was the hardcore chamber of hardcore or something like that.
It's very much
and then the third cage was the guitar room. I was like, what? It's like, that's nuts.
Elias was in there in the corner somewhere, just doing his thing.
I thought, that's nuts. I love it. Because it was so stupid that you had to enjoy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
it was one of those things that just transcended just being angry about it and just went past that and went into, oh, actually, this is quite fun.
I think actually this is a thing of taste and things. I understand it's very subjective. There are things which I have enjoyed, which I know that people in the office at Spa have looked at me saying, like, "Are you okay? Are you fever? What's wrong with you?" Like, I proclaimed my love for the Shark Boy thing. And I do remember I get into a very lengthy debate with somebody about. No, it was fun. It was, it was okay. It was enjoyable, and whatever. And they're like, no, it shouldn't exist. It's awful. It's not as offensive as people fighting invisible men. So I don't know why, why you're getting on me for bloody liking Shot Boy, but one of the boys didn't even get a payday because he was booked against Air. So I don't know why you're being mad at me.
Yeah.
So, but Kyle Cornett rant over. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Shark Boy. We're going into TNA territory now, aren't we?
I was there for
Shark Boy.
I was there, man, back in the day.
Oh, I remember when TNA used to put their pay-per-views on TV for free. What was it, Spike TV or?
Yes,
what was it? Something like that. That was when I was at university, and we used to gather around because it was on a decent time. Although I think it was on a stupid day like a Wednesday or something like that. We used to get the boys around and drink some beer and watch TNA pay-per-view.
I must confess,
but it was free on TV. You had like Virgin Media or something like that. It was free.
I must confess, I didn't watch any wrestling at university. For like 3 years, I didn't watch it at all. I think, well, that's not true actually. I did watch older clips and stuff on YouTube, but nothing that was happening at the time. So, like, I think from 2010 to 2013, I was kind of blank on everything.
Yeah, I had a period like that when I was at university. It wasn't until like my second year actually. I met my mate Tom, who came down to the Aspire show in February. And really enjoyed it actually, and met my mate Tom on the doors, like working security, and it became apparent that we both liked to watch WWE, both fans of wrestling, you know. And I'd never had that while I was at university. It was just, you know, it was just not a thing. I didn't have friends that liked WWE. So as soon as I met Tom, I was like, oh yeah, I've rediscovered my passion for this.
Yeah, I think it.
And it was around the time that the Ruthless Aggression era started, actually. And I love that era. I think it's possibly because I found someone that I could enjoy wrestling with. You know what I mean? Enjoy watching
yeah,
it.
I agree with you. And I mean, at university, I discovered what women smelt like, and I found that that distracted me for a few years. It continues to, I should say, but I kind of went, look at these strange creatures who are very nice to me. I need to find out exactly what it is they are. And I was kind of got caught up in, I was playing American football at uni and stuff, and I was kind of doing little things. Sorry, no, I'm on the phone. So I was kind of not really in tune with things from that perspective. I hadn't even watched a TV show for 3 years, really, because I was kind of doing that thing of studying, partying, just getting on with life, really, and discovering music and things. So I didn't really.
Yeah.
It's weird. You come out of uni and you go, "What do I do with myself now?" Almost. Quite weird.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it was like, well, I guess I better start watching wrestling again because I vaguely remember liking that at some point. Yeah, it's quite a strange experience. But,
yeah, it is. It is very weird experience, and I can only think how weird it is now. Like if you went back to university now,
I wish I could. I really do because there's a lot of stuff there. Like I wish I had tried out. I would have gotten back into martial arts a lot earlier than I did, but I settled for football, and that wasn't. It was fun, but it was a lot of sitting around drinking, and it's not good for your physique. So, ballooned. Like, I'm not a natural athlete anyway, so it wasn't physically it wasn't great, but it was a good laugh. I guess I can say that, but I would have studied a bit harder, I think, as well, to be quite honest. But you were a good boy, Luke, weren't you? I can
yes, I was a good boy.
Yes, I was so infamous that I had. Here's the thing about being disabled was they allowed you to stay in the same hall for 3 years. Second year, I have all these freshers move in. Well, of course, Kyle's being a good second year for about 5 minutes, and Kyle goes downstairs and has a beer, and all of a sudden, Kyle finds himself out on the street, just kind of partying, and then the security guard goes past and goes, "Oh no, not you again." What do you mean? He said, "Well, I had to deal with you last year throwing parties at 12 o'clock at night." I was like, "That's not me. What are you talking about? I didn't do that." I think he was winding me up, but all the second years freshers were kind of like, "Kyle, we thought you were really shy, but apparently not." I said, "No, don't believe him."
No.
To be young again. Oh well. What did you do at university?
I studied photography at university. It was, going back to the disability thing. It was my way in, my wide opening window towards education, so to speak, as we said earlier, automatic windows. And
if we have to re-record this, I'm going to have to keep that line. That's a good idea. Yes.
And
bloody automatic windows.
Basically, at my university, if you could walk through the door without hitting the side, you're pretty much shooing to get on the course. Yeah, Wolverhampton. Yeah. Oh, great 3 years.
I lived in Stoke, man. I was from the hood, you know what I mean? But no, I actually, here's a question for you, right? Wolverhampton. Now,
yeah.
I had a lot of buddies from Wolverhampton, and
Yeah.
not bad people in the slightest, but they always talk about Wolverhampton as if it was the worst place on earth. And I'd always think, yeah, but you guys are so nice. So how is that possible? You know, you think they were describing like a den of thieves, but I always found people from there to be quite friendly. But yeah,
the people are brilliant. You know, I mean, I suppose when you're, you know, I thought about this many times because I have been back to Wolverhampton on occasion after I graduated, and I saw it from a completely different light. Because obviously, when you're a student, you're sheltered almost.
Yeah.
Aren't you? I mean, you go to the students' union to drink. You stay in halls that's got security guards and cameras and all.
I'm going to pretend that I did all of that. Yes. Yeah. But I do see what you mean. Yes.
And then,
you see,
yeah, but you're sheltered as a student. You're sheltered. You've always got somewhere.
Yeah, you're in a
go.
safe pocket of that town. Yeah.
You're in. Yeah, you're safe. You're in a safe place. And I've been back a couple of times since and thought, blinking it, I can't remember it being this bad. And like you see things then that you didn't see before. I mean, as a photographer, an artist, I was training to see things that other people didn't.
Yeah.
And I prided myself on doing that. I was never a people photographer. I was never that kind of photographer. I didn't go in the studio unless I had to because it was part of the coursework. I went out and I took photos, talking about doors and things like that. I took photos of buildings because to me they were more interesting,
more long lasting.
Like, buildings are interesting. And
I'm gonna have to get you.
I remember one of my
I'm gonna have to get you to watch a. There's a video essay about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, in which it actually talks about the power of architecture and the effect on the culture surrounding it. Because essentially, the novel was a tribute to that cathedral, and wasn't really meant to be a big character study, which people think it was. It was really more a passion project about the cathedral, and it really does show in the text and actually how, you know, these things are much more relevant because, you know, people will die, sadly, but this kind of architecture, these kind of artifacts will,
it will live on for as long as it possibly will stay standing. And Wolverhampton was a strange place because you had a low level train station and an upper level train station. Now the upper level train station was the new train station. They'd basically built it over the top of the old train station, and the old train station was out of commission. They'd cut the tracks off and everything. I'm pretty sure that it was in use at some point alongside the new one. But when I got there, it was a derelict building, and it was fantastic. Like at that point, you could go in and you could walk around, and obviously it was concrete floors, so you didn't have to worry about falling through as long as you didn't try and do anything stupid like climb into the upper part.
Yep.
But it was, I found it absolutely beautiful. And a lot of people would not even know it was there. Well, the architecture was fantastic.
Those places do have character. And then it's good that you managed to capture that a little bit, at least.
Yeah, it seemed to be like a space that a lot of us found on the course, and at some point, most of us took pictures of it. Now, I found on a walk one day, I found a building and it turned out to be the old hospital. And it looked a lot like a courtroom. Like it had big steps going up to it, big pillars outside. I thought, oh, all right, is that the courtroom or something like that? Maybe a library. And I looked it up, and it was the hospital. And it was stood for about 15 years, and they'd moved the hospital to somewhere new. But if you didn't venture outside of the city centre, you wouldn't even know it was there.
It's kind
and
of
I went back
astounding,
to that place. Yeah, I went back to that place loads of times. Huge building, but if you didn't go out of the city centre, you wouldn't even know it's there.
And I understand what you mean in as much as I have never claimed to be a very good photographer, but I did used to go for long walks. And around Stoke, there's surprisingly a number of very green areas that are just kind of hidden away that you wouldn't necessarily know were there, but it's kind of like, wow, there's just a nice little pond or some trees or just some fields leading up and stuff, and nobody would have any clue they were there necessarily, unless you stumbled upon them, which I sometimes did. And I think it's interesting then that you were at university for how long?
I was at university for the standard sort of 3 years.
But you had spent that time kind of exploring most of the outside then?
Yeah. I'd spent that time exploring the city and going outside of that comfort zone.
Do you think you could find...
And I found a lot of things that people didn't.
Do you think you could find things around, say, Codner, that would intrigue people and make people go, I never knew that was here, kind of?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've lived here most of my 36 years, so I think there's things that people wouldn't even know were around. Codner has a castle, for example.
Oh, I need to go see that.
Yeah. We'll arrange that sometime
when the plague is not on. Yeah, that's...
yeah. There's no fear of the Black Death. But it's not a complete castle by any means, but it's a ruin, and it is very well preserved. Because there's now a group that preserves it. It's behind. You can walk through it, and it's fenced and things like that. So it's very well kept, and they sometimes have open days and things. And it's a really nice looking building. You can walk up the little stairs, and you can see whereabouts things would be. But yeah, not a lot of people even know where Codner is, let alone the fact that it had a castle in it. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing that people go, ooh. Because when people say, where are you from? I say, well, I'm from Codner. So where's that? So it's near Matlock. It's not anywhere near Matlock. But they go, oh, yeah, I'm near Matlock.
Well, see, this is why I always told people I'm from Cardiff. Because it's just easier.
Yeah.
It's just easier for me to say that because people go, oh, where's Pontycummer? And they go, oh, well, okay, it's by... And by the time I've explained it, they go, yeah, so how far is it from Cardiff? Was it? Just say it's bloody Cardiff. It doesn't matter. It's one of, having said that, I've travelled around so much. I can't claim to be from anywhere necessarily, but yeah, Cardiff is probably easier for people to understand. But with Codner, see, I didn't know where Codner was until one of our fine colleagues, Zena, had said that it was near Ripley, and then I kind of had a general idea for it. And I remembered talking to your mum actually that there's a walk down to Crouch, which which I have been up there, but it's one of those things I'd kind of blanked it out almost, and forgotten about it, and gone, oh, I know where that is. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know I had a castle though. That's kind of cool, So yeah, people, when the plague is over, when nobody's sick anymore, etc.
Yeah.
Go outside, find castles.
Find castles, find buildings of interest, and then probably go back inside and watch some wrestling.
Hopefully,
Get yourself
or
some tickets to go and see some live wrestling. Support British
wrestling. Yeah.
Wrestling.
See, God Almighty. So we're about 2 steps away from in a world divided by fear. One industry stands alone. It's the least most hygienic industry in the world. But yeah, no, I shouldn't say that.
But it's probably one of the most
Oh,
entertaining.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I was watching AEW. I'm just going to say it. It's a podcast probably about 3 people listen to.
Well, we're not doing this as a proper version, are we? Because we're just spouting a lot of stuff. So I imagine.
Well, to be honest, mate, I'm enjoying this conversation. I think I might put it out there as a test to see
Could do.
Yeah. Because
there's a lot of me smacking my mouth, and like, so people will hear a lot of gulping and etc. Probably cough.
No, that's fine, mate. It's. I mean, I've
try.
I've been talking. We've been on for like.
I'll try and cough in rhythm. Like, give me something to sing.
But what we could do is perhaps do one at a different time where it's a bit more structured.
Yeah.
And we talk about, But this one, I feel like this one would be a good one to put out there. See if people listen. See what
my brain will be functioning at least marginally better next time. But
put it out on the Spire Wrestling page and see who else wants to do a podcast with us. I think you can do more than 2 people.
Oh, that's cool.
So if you join host.
Oh, interesting. See, here's an idea though. You were about to mention all elite wrestling, and I had my reservations in the beginning, but I'm beginning to enjoy it a bit more now. There are some aspects of it I don't care for, but I do enjoy it. I find it.
Yeah.
It's just different, and I kind of like that.
Yes.
I feel like it's got some energy to it. I've always been a Jericho fan anyway.
Jericho.
So that's a big thing for me. But Rose Brothers have been great. I kind of wish that. Have you been seeing the podcast that they do? They've had some really nice little interviews.
Being the Elite or something.
I think it's on All Elite Unchained or something. I forget now.
Oh,
something like that. I don't know. It's on YouTube, but they do these little interviews and stuff, and you kind of think that's quite nice actually. There's these nice little sort of talks and stuff. Gives you an idea of. There's a lot of different perspectives and a lot of very creative people coming together, which is quite nice to see people doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they're very clear on these interviews that not everybody agrees, but they're at least trying to, which is nice.
Yeah, well, I think that's what makes it different. But on this week's All Elite on Dynamite. Because they were doing there, and everyone's doing empty arena shows now, aren't they? I mean, if they've got the money, they can do it. And they had the wrestlers as the fans, and I found that dynamic really quite interesting. Because behind them being these huge superstars, they are fans, and you could tell. But I think shouting all the way through, and they were just having loads of fun.
Sure. I do find it interesting that it's essentially what we do in training as a practice run.
Yeah.
Wherein you're taking what you're doing in the ring very, very seriously, obviously, but you're aware that your classmates are on the outside cheering you on or booing however they need to, and they're reacting to you. And that can only help you, I think, if you're, it's definitely a better approach than here's a bunch of empty chairs. And then what I couldn't understand on SmackDown and stuff was they actually filmed the empty chairs. I was thinking, I
Yeah,
don't
they were
like to
like,
see the audience anyway, to be quite honest. But I would rather
no,
that you saw something rather than a bunch of empty chairs.
empty chairs. Yeah,
You know,
go and get some of those cardboard cutouts from
oh my
WWEshop.com.
God.
Stick them in, like have Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Undertaker from the Attitude Era sitting in the seats.
Just an entire row of gold dusts, all like going in unison all across.
It'd be like playing SmackDown 2 now, you're old,
Oh
wouldn't
my
it?
God.
They just have loads of cardboard
God,
fans going,
I hated that game.
yay!
If it's the one,
Oh, I
I
used to
love,
love that game. Going
I
back
love,
to Taz, I used to play as Taz specifically.
I used to play as Taz on. Was it Here Comes the Pain? Is that the one?
Yeah, got that.
Because I love Taz's moveset. Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't think I can do as many suplexes with my back anymore. But yeah, it's one of those like,
No.
oh my God. Every time you pulled out a new one, you go, how the hell do you do that? That's
Yeah,
insane.
different variations of everything.
The Taz mission plex, in particular for me, is like, how did you kill that dude? You should have killed him. Like,
Yeah, he dropped him
yeah,
straight on his face.
like he looked like it murdered him. But I'm gonna have to go watch him versus Bam Bam because that was a great match. It's just popped in my head now. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to go review that. Like that'll be the next. That'll be the next podcast thing. We'll have to set each other matches to watch, and then come back and
Yeah.
go, yeah, it was really good. Ah.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. I think we've got some good ideas. We can ask the audience, so to speak, as well. I think. If you're listening to the podcast, you're listening to the Reverend, and you're listening to Classy Kyle, confession is in session and all that kind of stuff. You're listening to Classy Kyle. Give us some matches.
Listen, congregation, if you are in self-isolation, do not fear, because the Blue-Eyed Soul Man and the Reverend are here to brighten your day.
I like it. I like it. That might have to be the
That is why, ladies and gentlemen, I am the power from the gower, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour. And I have run out of, well, as you know, Reverend, I am the cartwheeling, scene stealing, whiskey swilling, lady thrilling. I forgot the rest of my gimmick. Anyway. You know what? I came up with so many goofy names right now. Actually, I don't think I can use any of them. It's one of those. I just remember, like, for those of you listening out, like Luke comes to me and says, "I'm going to make you a T-shirt design." I was like, "Oh, that's cool," and then he shows me it. I was like, it was 1,000 different ways of describing Ric Flair, and I thought I need a lot of nicknames. Let me think about this now. Here's 1,000 nicknames, none of which I'll ever get to use. But yeah, we do try.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like a cool
It is
T-shirt.
a great shirt.
You had one made, didn't you? And it took me ages, and had the gold glitter on it.
I
and
did
everything.
mean to get myself another one, but then I became ill. I got back from DN Wrestling on Monday, having managed United in Violence all weekend. And when you manage United in Violence, folks, like your liver may not survive. Like it's because if you're running around like causing havoc with Bully Boy Carter and you don't drink, well, you may not last too long. You may find yourself fired. So you got to have a strong constitution for these things. I've never drank so much in a weekend in quite a while. It was quite something. But it was a lot of fun though. Yeah.
It looked
Yeah.
like a lot of fun. You definitely played the heel very, very well, and I've only ever known
Well,
you
it was
to play the
terrifying
heel.
because you know that wrestling fans, if they detect you not being genuine, then they can kind of tell. And so, like, I was going to go out there and do the whole tough guy thing, but I've never done that because I've never,
Yeah,
I'm a guy who can look after himself, and that's about all I can say about me. So in the end, I sort of settled on, well, okay, if somebody like me was pretending to be tough, how would he be? And that's kind of what I started doing, and I found that they responded to that a little bit better. But still a long way to go. Bully and the Juggernaut were very, very honest with their feedback. So were my opponents. Everybody on that crew was great. Neil nearly killed me one night. That was interesting. We we had a thing where I got into an argument with him, and I go in the ring, and I'm kind of frustrated now because Neil's been like telling me off for interference. I threw my jacket at him, and of course, Neil, the referee, ladies and gentlemen, it may be the toughest man walking the face of the earth, like wearing stripes, because Neil came after me so quick. I threw a punch and I completely missed. And I thought, like, if I'd hit him, I think it would have been worse for me because then he would. He turned red and grew 5 feet, and came after me. And we got split up, and the crowd was really into it and stuff. But he was fabulous to work with, and everybody was. We were just trying to give people a good show. Yeah, it was a good little weekend. But my first time being a heel, and that was quite nerve-wracking. So
yeah.
yeah.
As it often is. I mean, talk about the theatrics in wrestling, and I'm in a pantomime. And those people that don't know, of course, Klassy Carl does. He came to see us last year, and I often think about when I'm creating, I've created the Reverend, and I think about what he's going to be like in that ring, and I think about it as a stage and delivering my sermons to the
Yeah.
gathering, and I think that's and see how animated I need to be for different situations. And I think it's worked really well. It's like some promos I've delivered, I've been static, and it worked. Some I've walked around, and it worked. And then obviously there's the ones that you should walk around and you didn't, and then there's always going to be those kind of ones. But I think at the end of not last week's promo class, but the week before, we did the round robin thing, and everyone was getting ready to leave, and I hadn't had my turn.
Yeah.
So I went full reverend on them. Like, the prophecy has not yet been delivered. And you know what? Everyone just turned around, sat back down, and listened to me. And it was the greatest thing that I've ever done in that promo class. And I was like, yes, that was on point.
Yeah.
That was on point.
Well, see, I think a lot of that goes into you have to be genuine with like just how much. Yeah, you don't necessarily have to be a reverend, although I know you are. You are ordained.
Yeah.
You are.
I am ordained, yes. Very, very interesting story that we'll leave for another podcast.
But
because it is something else that happened.
But I do think that you kind of have to say what you mean. And as a heel, I really just said what I thought. And I didn't really apologize for it. Whereas, like, in normal society, you would kind of keep that thought to yourself, Whenever you have a negative thought about somebody or a situation, I just thought, well, actually, no, I've got the freedom now. I can pretty much just go off and say whatever I want. So, that's kind of what I did. And it was good that way. You get to express in a very different way, but you have to be genuine about it. Otherwise, people will go, no, you're acting. You're not really in it. And that's very true. I think it's why you ain't gonna see me ever do 450s. I would love to do it, but I'm not that kind of I'm not that kind of athlete. you'll see me throw a lot of punches and kicks, a lot of brawling, a lot of judo throws, but you ain't going to see me do any 450 splashes or, ring dives or anything like that. It's not going to happen.
No.
So.
And this is the thing. This is why we go to training, isn't it? You develop a character for you, and you develop the character that works for you. And your character does work. I've seen you doing ring stuff as well as you're talking, and your talking's fantastic. And your in-ring stuff obviously got cut a little bit short at this point in time. But I always enjoyed it. You did what worked for you. And I think a lot of people try and do the 450s and things like that. And you think, hold on a second, pal. You've got to at least work up to that.
I think
Bigelow didn't just hit a moonsault one day and decide that it was good.
You know what? There's a kid who is with us that I think is just a marvelous example of somebody who's really owned himself and really kind of come out of his shell. Charlie is just tremendously talented and does things which suits him, and I'm very proud of the fact that he's coming out of his shell more, and he's really just being himself. He's not trying to go out there and be the gobbledygooker, which I think sometimes people get into a habit of doing that. Just being Charlie, and people like that because it's genuine. And when he comes off the ropes with that big elbow, it's like, yeah, of course. If he hits you with that, I'll tell you from experience, you go down. It's not a question of if you go down; it's yes, you will. Because otherwise you'll take your head off with that thing. And But I'm very proud of Charlie. I think he's done a tremendous job. And I mean that's the sort of thing you need to strive for and aspire. I hope that once we're back up and running again, that new people will come along and realize that this is really a place where I can be me. It's not. I'm not pressured. I'm going to be taught as much as I can. And I'm going to be developed the right way to be who I need to be rather than who somebody else thinks I should be.
Yeah, I mean that's the great thing, isn't it? About being there. I went in, I sat with did the fitness training, and I sat out a couple of promo classes until Paul said to me, "Do you want to get?" And I'm like, okay. And that's, I've always had that character. Obviously, being ordained, I can perform marriages in 4 states in America. But, alcohol fuels. So we'll go into that in a bit more detail later
We'll call it the resurrect. No, we can't. No, I wanted to call it the resurrection of. I realised.
Right. We'll go with that character. I've always had that character. I did go by the name of Lightning Luke for a while, and then obviously I came to Aspire shows and found out that Lewis had nicked my name. But I then went to the Well again and came up with the Reverend, and this is where we've got the confession sessions from and all that kind of stuff and the podcast. And the confession is in session, and this podcast has been fantastic. So I think I'm going to have to call it now, Dave.
Call it
and we've been going at it for 75 minutes.
Is it? Bloody hell! Okay.
Yeah, 75 minutes, dude. And this is why I enjoy these kind of things. I think we've got.
Imagine what would happen if we structured it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It would have cut. It would have gone 90 minutes. But I think we can accurately leave it there. I think we can safely leave it there. I've been the Reverend Luke Edwards. I've been here with Klassy Kyle Gibson for the confession sessions on Talk is Cheap for Cheap Shot Entertainment.
Make sure to be listening to Cheap Shop Entertainment Talk is Cheap podcast, because if you do not, ladies and gentlemen, you will be second rate. You will not be a class act. And I don't know why I became Stephen Hawking for a minute there. I apologize. Anyway, right. Well, take it.
So we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we've got the t-shirt shop as well, where you can get yourself a Klassy Kyle t-shirt as well on cheap donation for on close to order.
Right. Well, pleasure talking to you as usual, sir. And when come back to us soon, we shall do another one. Yes.
Yeah, we'll get some notes this time.
That's a good idea. You mean people plan this stuff? You know what? You're a monster. You know that, right? Like, you came to me with no structure whatsoever. No structure. I can't get this down.
Well, it's been
I will be in
fantastic.
my trailer. I am sick to death of this now. I want my feet scrubbed. Fernando, come back here now. No. You need to do my
Oh dear, dude. Right. Well, let's cut it there. Thank you very much for listening to the Talk is Cheap podcast. Thank you, Kyle, for connecting with us over the Anchor podcasting app and having a great laugh and a chat with us and going through everything that, brought us to the dance, so to speak.
Okay, cool.
So,
all right.
thank you very much.